Do you know how to sense trauma in the body? If you work in pelvic health or with postpartum clients, it's imperative that you do. So, listen in to today's episode as I share one of the most important tools for working with your clients that have experienced trauma.
Hello, friends. This is Lynn Schulte, and you are listening to the Birth Healing Summit podcast. We are here for meaningful conversations that will transform the way you work with pregnant and postpartum clients. Whether it is a new perspective, tool, or technique, you'll be able to implement it into your practice today. I invite you to sit back, listen with an open mind, and grab the golden nugget today's guest has to offer. Now let's get started.
Before I dive into today's topic, I'd like to let you know that I am holding a masterclass October 13th, 15th, and 17th on how to have more fun in your practice and avoid burnout. So please join me if that is something that you are wishing for. It's a free masterclass. You need to sign up to get the Zoom link. The link will be in the show notes. You need to register for the day that you will attend to be able to get the Zoom link to join in. So I look forward to sharing that information with you in that masterclass. So today, I would like to dive into and share with you the trauma release statement. And this is a tool that I use a lot in my practice. But before we dive into and I give you the statement, first off, we need to understand, how do you sense trauma in the body? Do you know how to sense for it? Do you know when you're working with someone, whether they have experienced trauma or whether they are holding trauma in their body? And for me, I noticed that there is a nervous system response and there's also a tissue level response when it comes to trauma. And we need to address both and when we're working with this trauma response. So, what I do, how do we know when someone's been traumatized? Well, sometimes they'll tell us in their intake. It'll be in their paperwork or just the way they talk about their experience. They may tear up, they may well up about the experience, or they have a hard time talking about it, or they want to avoid it. They don't like talking about it. One of the things with C-sections, if they can't touch their C-section scar, that's a pretty big indicator that maybe they're experiencing trauma from their C-section surgery. And so I really invite you to pay close attention to the words that your clients say and how they say it, because those are all indicators that you might be encountering trauma in their system. When I start all my sessions, I start with my clients and I stand behind them and I put my hands on their shoulders. And one of the things that I'm tuning in for is, what's their nervous system feel like in their body? And a normal nervous system is just calm and peaceful, and there's really nothing, there's not much that is activating in my hands. But when a nervous system is activated, there's a buzziness, there can be a staticky like feeling. There's also a tension in the tissues, and the tension is more general, more global tension than tension like with my hands on their shoulders, not just in their upper traps. It's this overall broad feeling of tension in their body. And so as soon as I notice that in standing, then one of the first things I like to do when I lay my clients down on my table is to actually there's 3 techniques that I teach in my advanced online postpartum course on calming the nervous system down. One is the HPA axis release, and then the dural tube release, and then maybe even a more specific pituitary release in their body. In their head, their cranium. And so those are some of the techniques that I work on. I know a lot of you may know about breath and breathing and being able to change from sympathetic response to parasympathetic response in the body. That's all great, great stuff. And I also encourage you to really pay attention to the tissues itself, like the local area of tissue. Working in pelvic health, my hands are a lot of times on a uterus. And I can sense in with my hands when I just tune into the uterus. Sometimes trauma response in the tissue will feel like a freeze response. So the tissues feel frozen. The uterus will feel heavy and thick and hard. And I also have a I have a reaction in my body when my hand touches into um, tissue that is holding trauma in a client's body. So when I put my hand on a uterus or some other the area that of their body that is holding trauma, I get a very gut wrenching ugh in deep in my belly, and that to me is an indicator that they are holding trauma in their tissues. And so, um, also, one of the things that I teach in the Birth Healing Intensive program, that's my 9 month long program that starts at the beginning of every year. And one of the concepts in there, I do teach this trauma release statement. We go into greater detail in that, but I also teach the 7 different um, possibilities for when the tissues won't release. So when you're working with the body and you're just noticing that there's a resistance to the muscles letting go, to the fascia letting go, to the bones moving again, that restriction, that resistance to release is an indicator that something's being held in there. And one of those options is trauma. And so the very first step that I like to do when I do notice that there's trauma in a certain area of the body, I like to start off with the trauma release statement. And I feel the trauma release statement is more ideal for what I'm going to call lower T trauma versus capital T trauma. So to me, trauma, there's like a continuum of trauma. So we can have like smaller traumas that happen to us, and then we can have like capital T trauma. So sometimes we know capital T trauma when it has happened, but the smaller T traumas, sometimes we don't even realize that it's in the tissues. And until you put your hands on it and you really sense it and feel it, then that is uh, that is something that we can sense in our hands, and our clients might not be fully aware of it. And so when I go to use the trauma release statement, I will use it when I feel like tissues just aren't really letting go, or maybe there's just not this beautiful flow that should be happening through that pelvic space. And I just get an overall sense. And your intuition can be a huge indicator of when you might want to use this. So please pay attention to that. But the trauma release statement starts off with, we just ask these tissues to release any shock or trauma being held in this area. And that's the first part of the statement. So then, as you say this statement, it's super important that you pay attention to what you sense and feel in your hands, because we want to make sure that your hands are noticing the shifts and the changing in the tissue. Because if you don't get any shifts and change as you're doing the trauma release statement, then it's something deeper. There's other aspects to the trauma. That's when you may want to like make sure that your clients are working with a trauma therapist, okay? And if you do notice a softening with that, then you know, like, okay, this is good. The second part, there's several parts to the trauma release statement. I'm going to say it all completely now, and then I'll talk about the different parts. But the first part is just making that statement. We just ask these tissues, we just ask this uterus, we just ask this pelvic space, whatever the tissue may be, we just ask it to release any shock or trauma being held in these tissues. So we're acknowledging it. We're making it aware that we know that it's there. And then the second part of it is knowing that the event is over. So the birth is over and the baby came out. So if it's birth related, I always like to add that component that the baby came out, because sometimes the body doesn't realize that, especially the pelvic space, the pelvic bones. The uterus might still think that the baby is being held inside of it. And so the event is over, or the birth is over, baby's out. And then the last part is, and everybody is okay. Now, mind you, we cannot say that last part of the statement if there is been a demise to the baby during the birth process, if there's any depth, then I would not go there with this trauma release statement. There's other ways to work with that. Um, so only do this on, we know baby's okay, we know mom's okay, then we can say that last part. But we need to make sure that each three of those parts, it's over and everyone's okay. And then for birth, the baby's out. So it's over, baby's out, and everyone's okay. Or if it's just like a bicycling accident, or, a car accident, the accident's over and I'm okay, or everyone's okay. So that those are the components. And as you're saying each section of that statement, you need to make sure that it is landing in their body, that it's landing in their tissues as you say it, that the body resonates with those words. If the body doesn't resonate, and how does it resonate? To me, the words land, they sink into the tissues. You might notice a softening in the tissues. When it doesn't land in the tissues, to me, it's like the words, the energy stays above the body, or it flows over the body. It doesn't go down into the body. So I'm looking at sinking down into the tissues. Do I feel like there's this like resonance to those words in the body and in the tissues? If it doesn't land in the body, I will repeat it a couple of times and just seeing if repeating it is enough to help it to become more resonant with the body and the tissues. And if it doesn't, then there may be a limiting belief that needs to be shifted. There's other aspects to trauma that you need to understand in order to really clear the trauma out of the tissues. And I do go into that in the birth healing intensive. So if this is something that you want to understand and know how to work with and what I love about this work is that you don't have to go into the nitty gritty. You don't have to replay each and every moment of the trauma experience, that we can just kind of clear out the energy aspect of it and not just it's working more with the energy of what happened versus the actual each and every moment of it and having to reprocess it. And what's also super important is that you're connecting the body and the tissues into what's happening, because cognitive behavioral therapy is just talk therapy. It's just coming from your head and it's not connecting into the body. And the body is really where that trauma is stored. And that's why we need to work with the nervous system and we need to work with the tissues at the tissue level. So know that there's a lot more to working with trauma, and it doesn't have to be this big, ugly, scary thing. That there are skills and tools that you can learn to help your clients clear what is being held in their body. And the trauma release statement is one of the first easiest access points to try with your clients and see if you get any results with it. You see if you feel the tissues letting go. See if you feel the shifting in the energy. The what was stuck is now flowing. Those are all signs that, yeah, the body's on board with what you're saying. The body's agreeing. The body can let this go. And so I just wanted to share this with you. I know I've talked about this concept in other summits. I've talked about it, but to have my own little episode here in my podcast. Now you guys can all refer back to this, and I can have people say, go watch that episode. That's why I chose to share this trauma release statement here with you today. And I hope you find it helpful. So please give it a try and see what you find. And I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you find it effective or not. And please know that there's other aspects to it. There's more that you can do with it. And I do go into it in more detail in the Birth Healing Intensive. And I would love, love, love to have you join me on that journey through that program. It's truly designed to help you do your own work so that you can show up more powerfully for your clients. If you've had birth trauma yourself, I hope you're not getting activated, but your clients may say something that activates something in you, and it just keeps you from being able to be fully present and fully know exactly how to help support someone in their trauma if you haven't dealt with your own trauma yourself. So the intensive program gets you 4 one-on-one sessions, with 2 with me and 2 with someone else, and um, another birth healings practitioner, and you get to work each month. We do a group call, and you get to work with other students in the program, and you practice the material that is being taught that month. And it truly is a wonderful, supportive community that is generated. Each cohort is just I've heard from other students in the past that they still reach out to their study buddy that they went through the program with. They know they can call them and get support in anything that they're dealing with in their life. And so I just absolutely love the healing that happens in this birth healing intensive. It's one of my most fun and most joyous material that I love sharing with you all. So if that is of interest to you, you can learn more about it on the masterclass, how to have more fun in your practice and avoid burnout, or you can just apply for and fill out the application for the birth healing intensive. We'll jump on a call and make sure that the program is a good fit for you. And I would love to have you in it. So please check it out. Please use this birth healing or this trauma release statement and let me know how that works for you. And here is to smoother births and faster recoveries. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Today's podcast was brought to you by the Institute for Birth Healing. To discover more, visit instituteforbirthhealing.com. To claim $50 off of any online course, use coupon code PODCAST50 at checkout. Till next time, I'm Lynn Schulte, founder of the Institute for Birth Healing.